Hello and welcome to this webinar about creating and using textures in Corel Photo Paint X7. Thank you for watching this webinar. My name is Mo Beumers. I'm a designer, illustrator, and artist based in Germany with my studio Econseptum. And I've been working with Corel graphic suite now since almost 2 decades. And what I was fascinated about was the power of textures, which can be used in Corel Photo Paint, but in CorelDRAW as well. And since the new version is out, X7, there are a few changes in the fill settings where I will talk about in this webinar as well. Of course, there was a webinar about textures in Corel Photo Paint before this one, so this is more a sequel. I got a couple of requests from viewers and people who asked me to elaborate on how to create textures and how they are used a bit more. So I will cover that in this webinar. And the first example I have chosen is how I use textures to enhance photos. Well, in this example, it's not really a photo, it's more a 3D render. So I built a model for a client of a cafe in a 3D program and rendered it in another application, and the output is an image like that. And though it already looks realistic, it's not quite photorealistic. So if you take a closer look at it, you might see that it looks still pretty flat and lifeless. So to enhance it a bit more, I applied a couple of effects and textures, of course. That's called post-processing, and I'm gonna show you that process, how I did that in Corel Photo Paint. So this is most likely what I start with. This is the image that comes out of my render application. I already did a couple of adjustments in the colors and the contrast and so on. And if you are familiar with working with 3D applications and the rendering process, you might know that you can not only render a finished image on several ways, you can also render only aspects of your image, like for example the lighting which comes through the windows and which is produced by those spotlights, and the shadows, and you can all that you can render in a separate pass, which is then called shadow pass and light pass. You can also render only the colors in the entire scene, or many things more. And I use those passes, of course, to enhance my image a bit more, which you can see here. I added an additional object for those wooden textures to make it more realistic, the wood texture on the chairs and the bar. And I also enhanced the lighting and a couple of things more, the colors, as you can see here. And this is probably how it looks like when it's done straight out of the render. And the post-processing is where the magic really happens. Well, it's not that spectacular, actually, to be honest, but this makes the difference between a realistic and a photorealistic image, in my opinion. And I added a couple of things here, for example, which are actually common to photographs. And this is, for example, since light has a higher range than captured by cameras, you can achieve a sort of over blooming effect by simply taking the light path, which shows the windows simply white, because the light breaks through the windows, of course, and by taking that and adding a Gaussian blur effect to it. So you might see the difference if I turn it off and on again. So it really shines over those little frame elements and makes it more realistic. And I also added a vignette effect, and this is actually funny. It's one of the most used post-processing effects, and it become very cliche-like using a vignette effect, but still every camera has a spot of focus, which is most of the time in the center physically, and how should I explain it? The light hits less into the corners of the photo sensor, so this is where how you can achieve that effect with a vignette, and it looks a bit like that. So the light hits the corners of the CCD sensor less than in the center, and this is called vignette. I also added a little bit of distance blur, which is called distance of focus, bokeh, because with a new bokeh blur effect you can achieve a more realistic blurring like cameras actually have. So you might know this from movie scenes where something in the distance is blurred out, and where you have those little circles where lights are shining, and this is called bokeh. I also applied a white noise effect, a grainy effect, to make the picture more grainy. And this is actually funny. Even modern digital SLR cameras try to simulate that effect, and it's mostly incorporated in the CCD sensor anyway. And this effect is better known from the old analog cameras or more from the photo films, where you always had a little bit of grainy texture on the photos. And the funny thing is modern cameras simulate that as well too. It seems to be a nice effect. So I added that one on my photo as well, and this is where actually I start with textures. So in order to achieve that noisy effect, I first go to my fill settings, and those fill settings you will find if you have your toolbar open at the very bottom of your toolbar. It's that little icon, and if you double click on it, the edit fill properties or options open up, and here you have uniform fill, fountain fill, pattern fill, and texture fills. And texture fills are my favorite actually, because you can interactively change them how you need them according to your needs. And whatever you change here, it will make your texture look different. And to add that grainy noise texture, I click on the flyout on the right, and I think it's this one. Yes. This comes close to a white noise effect or fill texture, whatever. So I'm gonna select that one, and I don't have it applied to anything yet in my scene. So I need to create an object first, which I can fill, or I take one of those rectangle or ellipse fills. I can also create a polygon, and these are most of the time pre-filled with the settings you did in the fill settings. So I'm going to drag a rectangle over my image, and here it is. Here we have our white noise. So now I can play around with the merge modes. Can add it to my scene or subtract. Can also do it overlay. And when I increase that to a very low value, like 10%, you see what I mean. This makes your image pretty grainy. So I also use textures in another way in my image, and this is what I have here in my post correction group. If I enable these, you might see the difference already. So it's just to break those large patches, those large areas into areas with a lot more variation. And this is simply done almost the same way. I can show you quickly. So first I'm gonna create a mask. Most of the time I use the freehand mask tool, and then I create a mask. I'm just doing that roughly here now, just for the purpose to show you. So this is my mask now, and when I have a texture I can restrict it to that area. But first I have to create it, of course. Again, I'm gonna select this time a more cloudy texture like this one. Let's set the blue color to black. So now I have a nice black and white texture fill. Now I'm gonna create a new rectangle of this size. And when I click it 1, 2, 3 times, the handles change to those perspective distortion handles. And now I can distort my texture according to the perspective in my scene. So this adds a bit more realism to the texture itself, because the further away the texture is, of course, the smaller the details are. And now I have two options. I either can invert my mask and hit Ctrl X to get rid of everything that is not necessary, or I can create a clip mask, which I prefer because clip masks are more non-destructible for the objects. So when I create that mask, I can edit that clip mask at any time. So for example, if something adds to that area, I can change my clip mask without changing my my actual object, and the texture still covers the edited area as well. And once that's done, I can select an appropriate merge mode, for example add, and drag the value down to let's say 10. 10 is nice. And you can see that I have broken up that large patch of color, which was pretty flat, into into a patch with more variety, and that makes it more realistic and readable as well. So that's what I did with the ceiling and that wall patch above the bar. And if I turn it off and on, you might see the difference already. So yeah, I also use the texture for the floor, and that's actually the same process. I just grabbed my magic wand mask tool, and since I normally use color keyed renders, that means that every object has a different color. I just simply can use my magic wand, and then select those areas and apply a texture in the same way. So yeah, this is how I use textures in photo manipulation or photo enhancement. I also use textures for creating my own brush nibs, which I will show you here. So in order to create a new brush nib, I covered that in a couple of different tutorials already, so I'm gonna explain that just roughly. In order to create a new brush nib, I need a black and white or grayscale image, and since we already have our cloudy texture here, we can just pick our rectangle tool, which will be filled with cloudy texture, and then hold the Control key and drag a rectangle filled with our cloudy texture. And yeah, this is very useful for a brush nib since it's black and white, or since it has grayscale values. But we also need a mask to create a new brush nib. So this is where I use clip masks as well. I just copy my object with the object in the clipboard. I just copy it. I don't cut it. I'm going to create a new clip mask from object transparency, and into this clip mask you can see that the clip mask is active when it is indicated by that red border. I go to edit, paste, and paste my object as a new selection. And in this way I have now a clip mask, or I have the darker areas in my textures, transparent, and the light areas are opaque. And I'm going to combine the clip mask to my object, and then hit Control M. I need to delete the mask first. Control M, and now I have a mask consisting of everything around my object and the darker areas in my object itself as well. But first let's apply a vignette effect to it to make that square round, which fits more to a brush nib. So I'm going to use Effects Creative Vignette. And yeah, this is already nice. Now I can hit Control M again, use my mask. Then I open my brush settings docker, select a brush. The custom art brush is fine here. Then I go to the nib options, and I can create a new nib from the contents of the mask. And here it is. So it appears when you open that flyout with a arrow icon, you see that there are already a couple of predefined brush nibs in Corel Photo Paint, and this is changed across previous versions, among previous versions as well, sometimes more, sometimes less. And here your new brush nibs, your newly created brush nibs will appear. So when we create a brush, we of course want to test it out as well. So here it is, our smoke brush or cloud brush or whatever. So yeah, you can create a lot of different textures for your purposes. Yeah, this was just an example with a smoke brush. You can also create brush nibs for stone or rock-like textures. I actually can show you that quickly as well. So I'm gonna drag a new rectangle with the same fill again, with a cloudy texture, but instead of making the mask and all that stuff, I first apply a 3D-like effect. For example, relief sculpture. Yeah, that comes close. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. So this does nothing else than taking the grayscale values of your fill and yeah, calculating based on that grayscale values, it calculates elevations on your textures, and if you change the light direction, you get an idea what I mean. So this is a very simple way to create a rocky, stony texture, whatever. So let's adjust the contrast a bit more. We're gonna copy that object into the clipboard again, and going to clip mask, create from object transparency, and then pasting our copied object as new selection into the clip mask. There it is. Everything that is black or that was black in our texture is now transparent. We actually want to have it different, so the opposite way around. So everything that is shadow should be, it will not be visible in our brush nib anyway. So with the clip mask still selected, I go to Image, Transform, and invert the colors. And as you can see here now, all my shadows are now visible, whereas the light areas are transparent. So I'm going to combine the clip mask with my object again, and also applying the vignette. Here we go. On the brush settings docker, and if you don't have the brush selected, nothing will show up here anyway, so don't wonder when there's nothing. It changes as soon as you select the brush. Now go to nib options again. Oh, I have no mask at the moment, so I need to create it first with Control M. Now where is it? There it is. And create from contents of mask, and there it is, my rock brush. You can also try that one out. Clear the mask. Let's take it gray green. So here is my rock brush. So yeah, as you can see, you can create your own brushes and brush nibs with various effects, and especially with textures, very easy. But yeah, that increases your painting tools a lot more. So what I also want to show you is a new feature in Corel Photo Paint X7, which in my opinion is awesome, especially when you have to deal with textures. And I need to explain it a bit first. When you are a game designer or 3D modeler, and you're used to work with textures, sometimes it can happen that you use a texture to apply to a surface that is larger than the texture itself. So that means that you need to tile the texture, and this can lead to problems, especially when the edges don't fit to the opposite one. So let me explain that with our smoky texture example again. So for example, if you need to tile this texture, the edges will never fit to the opposite one. So the next patch of texture, actually I can show you that. So the next patch of texture would be here, and you can see that there is a seam. This would never fit, and this is not believable by no means. So it's better to make this small patch of texture seamless for being able to tile this patch of texture unlimitedly on every surface, on any surface you have. And there is a new feature in Corel Photo Paint X7 now, which allows you to make your fills seamless. And I'm going to show you quickly what I mean. So I'm going to save this one first. So I have saved my piece of my object, my filled object now as a JPEG, to be able to use that object as a pattern fill. I'm going to double click on my fill icon, and this time I go to bitmap pattern fill, and here I can click the fill picker, that's that little arrow aside the fill preview, and here I go to browse. I need to change that to JPEG, and here is my saved object. Now I have my my texture as a pattern fill, but in order to make this pattern, this patch seamless, I can adjust it over here, and I can make it radial blending and also linear blending. I like to combine both because it gives the most realistic effect. And in the blending, what is it called, in the linear blend option, I set it to 50%. That means from the edge of your texture up to 50% of your texture will be blended, so that gives a nice blend over half of your texture patch. And the edge match I'll leave at 50, but enabled. And now as I use that fill, you will see that it has no seams anymore. So this is how a texture is made seamless. And let's gonna apply this to my object. So I'm gonna create a mask, get the fill tool, apply it to here. Now you will see when I duplicate it, there are no seams anymore. So this is the way to create seamless textures. Sorry. So we are almost at the end of this webinar. There are a couple of things I want to cover yet regarding tips and tricks. And yeah, I've collected a few requests of after my previous webinar, and I want to show you, for example, how to enhance textures. And let's imagine you have a texture which is a photo from a tree bark, and it is pretty uneven lightened, that leads to the problems that you can't really use it as a bump map, for example. To explain bump maps, they are used on 3D models and in rendering to apply more surface texture to the initial model. So when you have a plain model with a bump texture, you can manipulate the surface a bit more. And it's just by taking the light and dark values for elevation, and lighter areas are more elevated than darker areas. So if you have a photo which is not evenly lightened or which has shadows in it, you can get rid of that with local equalization, which you find under adjustments. I use that actually a lot in conjunction with textures to also create sort of an ambient occlusion. I will explain in a couple of seconds what that is. I'm going to show you what I mean with local equalization. So I'm going to create my famous square again. And here I have some light and dark areas. And yeah, to use, when I don't want to use that as a bump map and I want to even that more out, then I go to local equalization, and by adjusting these parameters, these sliders, I can enhance my texture a bit more. So in general, the whole texture gets evened out way more. What else do we have? Oh, copy visible. Yeah, that's something very important. A feature that is existing since a couple of versions, of course, but I use that as well when I especially combine several textures. Let me show that on this picture. I have all these separate objects here, which are more or less blended or merged on top of each other. So when I want to have a copy of that what is actually visible here, then yeah, I either can combine all these objects into one and then simply copy that object, copying it to the clipboard, doing just redoing the steps and then pasting my object in again. But you also can create a mask, for example. Let's just create a rectangle mask, and now we are able to copy visible. So that takes everything that is stacked on each other, on top, everything in my stack. And if I now do Control V, it pastes exactly that image in here. Maybe I should make those things invisible, that you can see it a bit more. So this is a very useful feature in the process of creating textures. Yeah. What else? Lenses for fine-tuning. Yeah, that's almost I almost mentioned it. If you have if you stick to a certain workflow in creating textures, then you might have found out that it's always better to have your separate objects non-destructible. That means that you can make changes at separate objects at any time. And here comes the lens feature, or here come the lenses into play. These are nothing more than either the effects or adjustments you can make to an image. Not all, but the most important ones, like contrast, for example. And by having a lens, you are able to adjust your object at any time. For example, we want to increase the contrast a bit more, like this. And we can apply that to our object with a lens. And to apply that lens only to the object, you can use the clipping group feature. So in that way, I only have applied my lens to the appropriate object. I also can group those objects, but I like to make use of the clipping group feature. Alright, then we have a couple of interesting terms in 3D modeling, rendering, and game development. These are terms which are used for several different maps. So what are these terms about? Well, normal maps are used almost the same way as bump maps. So for example, if you have a 3D object and you want to apply certain details but don't want to model them out, you can achieve that result with the normal maps. And these work in a way that, yeah, certain RGB values in the texture are calculated to angles of the surface and how they receive light. That's a very easy explanation of normal maps. Subsurface scattering is the effect which we might know from human skin, or it is very visible on candles, for example. In wax, it's simply the effect when light shines from behind the surface and through the surface itself. Sometimes it changes its color, like when you can see that at a person's ears. When the light comes from behind, then the light shines through the ears but looks a little bit more reddish or orange. And this is called subsurface scattering, because the light hits the surface, penetrates the surface, and is distributed within the surface to is spread or distributed, just scattered. Ambient occlusion is when, I better explain that with a brush. So let me pick the pencil. Ambient occlusion is when you, I should take a more readable color. So when this is your surface and you have certain dents in it, then of course light from a certain light source hits your surface. But when it is reflected, it gets reflected more from the elevated areas than from the cavities in your dents. So here is always more shadow, or to say less light, than on the elevated areas, because whatever angle the light takes, less of the light will hit the cavities of your dents. And this is called ambient occlusion. And we can simulate all these effects within Corel Photo Paint without having ever any kind of 3D model in Corel Photo Paint, but we can incorporate that into our textures. And I'm going to show you how that works. I will start with the normal maps first, because from that I can show you the other ones. So I'm going to create a new document, 500 to 500 pixels. The background color will be, well, at first we take white. That's the best way to start off. And we need a texture first, a bump texture, which defines how the surface will be shaped. And for that I'm gonna pick a fountain fill, radial fountain fill. Let's take this one, make that white, and that one black. So this is a good start. You can add some more stuff to it, like some rippling effects. And let's add some this is a bit much. Let's add that to overlay. Transparency to 70. Oh, that looks good. So we will add some more stuff to it, like this. So everything that is dark in here is now in, more in the background, and everything that's light is more elevated. So this defines how a flat surface will be, shaped, sort of. We need to save the file first, so we go to export. Let's call that bump map. All right, and let's start a new document with a plain background. And then we select the white background and duplicate it 4 times. Now we need actually 4 colors which are angled 90 degrees on a color circle. We're gonna start with yellow, a uniform yellow. Maybe I can well, that's not what I'm actually looking for. So as you can see, I can also drag and drop colors from my color palette, and I need a true yellow as a fill color. So I'm going to fill that yellow. This one will be cyan. So I'm going to drag that to my fill. The next one will be dark blue or blue, just plain blue. And the 4th one will be magenta. So all these 4 colors, if you imagine them on an RGB color circle, they all will have the same distance to each other on the color circle. That's why I've chosen them. And let me show that here. So I used this image in another tutorial where I explained the displays feature in Corel Photo Paint. If we want to, we need to apply the colors, the 4 colors, to different directions. And yellow will be for the top left corner, cyan will be for the top right corner, blue for the bottom right corner, and magenta for the bottom left corner. And this is simply how normal maps are built. In the next step, I'm going to select my yellow object and create a clip mask again. You might already found out that I'm pretty addicted to clip masks. Then we go to Effects, Custom, Bump Map, and here we select our own custom bump map, and we go to Surface, Lighting, and we need the yellow color on all surfaces that point into the top left direction. So the directional light will be, this way. I think it's fine. Yes, exactly. The declination we can set down to 0, so that all surfaces which are parallel to the viewer are colored, which is physically actually not possible, but still they are more colored than surfaces which are perpendicular up to the viewer's eye. The surface, the floor needs to be at 0, the ceiling at 255, that's okay. No highlight, smooth bump maps and invert bump map. And the scale factor, the more we dial it down, the less visible the effect will be. We will leave it at 8, I think, that was fine. Yeah. Now, every surface on our bump map or on our virtual object which points into the upper left direction is colored yellow. We do the same with our cyan object. We create a clip mask from object transparency, and with the clip mask selected we go to effects, custom, bump map again. We leave the settings, but we change the directional light to 45 degrees. So light that comes from the upper right corner is colored magenta, and every surface of our object that is pointing towards the upper right corner is colored cyan, not magenta, cyan. Alright, we do that with the blue one as well. Clip mask, create from object transparency. The clip mask selected, we go to effects, custom, bump map. Here the lighting will change to 315 degrees. Alright, and the last one, the cyan object, the magenta object. Also create a clip mask here, custom, bump map, lighting, and 225. That's fine. We're almost finished. What we need to change is the background color, because every surface that is pointing directly to us, so the z-axis, so to say, need a specific color. We need to set that in the fill settings. Here we select a uniform fill, and then we need to put in the RGB values of 128, 128, and 255. That gives us that, gray blue, sky blue, whatever. And we're going to fill our background, and there we have our normal map. And now to finally show you what that normal map actually is used for, I have a little program here, which is called Crazy Bump. And now to show you that these normal maps even work in your 3D applications. First I'm going to export that one, called normal. Yep, thank you. There we have our little Crazy Bump program. I'm just gonna show you how a normal map actually works. Here's our normal. Let me calculate it, and here you can see what the normal map adds to the surface. So if we have a plain surface, we can probably see it better at a box. So with that normal map, we add a sense of 3D to the surface, but it's only simulated, and is used to calculate in which intensity the light hits the surface. So we can move that around a little bit. Of course, the lower the angle to the surface, the less visible this effect becomes. So this is how normal maps are used. This is how I create normal maps in Corel Photo Paint. If you have your bump map, once you have your bump map, this one, it's totally easy to create anything else from it. For example, let's create an ambient occlusion map. So like I said, ambient occlusion is when less light hits the cavities. And again, we're gonna open a new document, same resolution, 500 to 500 pixels, and we go to actually we can do it the other way around. That's even better. So let's import our bump map. Import. Okay, doesn't want to work. Anyway, we can also drag and drop it in here. There it is. And by using the local equalization on this one, we can achieve something that is similar to ambient occlusion. So in the cavities, you have more darker areas, and everything that is more elevated is lighter. Of course, the effect is not that extreme like here, so you always can multiply that on your texture and set the merge opacity to 10% maybe, or yeah, maybe even 20, but not more. It's just to add a little bit of shadow to the cavities. Subsurface scattering, I can show you that in this document. So if I have an object like this ellipse, well, let's use a bit more 3D like a bit of a more 3D like object. So like this, for example, I'm gonna use my ellipse tool, and here I have something like a ball, and my light is coming from the back. Let's say this is my light source, and it's coming from here. Well, it actually should be light, so we take white. So this is this is now my light source, and the light from behind hits the hidden surface from the ball at the back and gets scattered in the surface or under the surface and reaches the front and is visible. And we can achieve that by duplicating our object. This one we need to lighten up. Can do that with a brightness and contrast, and here we set the brightness to let's say 50%. Yeah, that should be bright enough. And we also need to fuzz it because the light gets scattered in the surface. So we go to Effects, Blur. Oh, we can use a clip mask here as well. So we create a clip mask from Object Transparency, go to Effects. We don't need to blur the clip mask, we need to blur the object itself. No, we need to blur the clip mask. Effects, Blur, Gaussian Blur. That should be fine. Yes. Almost. Well, let's apply that to the upper object. So we create a clip mask here, Effects, Blur, Gaussian Blur. set that to, yeah, around about this value. That's nice. And now, as we change the color of the underlying object with effects, camera, and let's take photo filter. We set that to a more orange color. Preserve the luminosity. So like this. And this one we will change to camera, photo filter, to more reddish color, like this. Now you can see that the light comes from behind as well, a bit. This is called subsurface scattering. But yeah, all these things are neat, nice little effects just to use, just to enhance your textures a bit. And yeah, I am actually done so far with the webinar. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope this was useful. If you like to ask a couple of questions, at the 8th of March I will make a question and answer sit-in on Facebook. Just take a look at the Corel Facebook page and join there to ask whatever question you have regarding this webinar. Thank you for watching again, and see you, or yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.